breathe in here. And one of the guys that works in there said, yeah, my sinuses cleared up like almost immediately. So I said, well, good, tell your customers. And I gave him a couple of these to put on. Everyone's got this plexiglass up now to create a force field. But I gave him a couple of these to put on there. They're just iWave cleans, and they state this establishment is protected by iWave Air Purification, which is our website. So these are available to you guys. So if you run into a situation where you got a customer, you install them, and you want, they want their customers or their workers to know that they're ensuring their breathing environment. This is an easy way of getting that word across.
How do we get those?
Just let me know.
How much for just the stickers?
Yeah, this product sucks.
These are free, so just let me know if you need 10, if you need 20, if you need 50 of them.
I would say 30 of them anyway.
So just email me and let me know. I'll leave what I've got here too. So, probably should start by making sure everybody's got a copy of this. And as I'm passing this out, I'm gonna start a video. This is our new commercial video. I don't know if anybody's seen it yet, so I'll play it.
So where's your home? Columbus.
I live in the Columbus area.
Is clean, breathable air to the health of patients in hospitals, to the learning capabilities of students in schools, to the productivity of employees in businesses. New Calgon's iWave air purifiers address the needs in these and other commercial buildings by operating in facility HVAC systems, cleaning the air as it circulates. iWave's patented technology uses needlepoint bipolar ionization to create a precise electrical charge that safely cleans the air, effectively killing mold, bacteria, and viruses. iWave also reduces allergens, odors, smoke, static electricity, and airborne particles, as well as aids in keeping the indoor coil cleaner. iWave's technology generates the same ions as nature creates with lightning, waterfalls, and ocean waves without developing any ozone. When these ions are injected into the airstream, creating a plasma region, they break down passing pollutants and gases into harmless compounds like oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water vapor, neutralizing odors without producing any ozone or other byproducts. The harmless ions created by this technology attach themselves to allergens, smoke, pollen, airborne particles, and more. When this occurs, the particles continue to cling to each other until they are heavy enough to be moved by the air current and caught by the air filter, resulting in a reduction of airborne particles that can cause respiratory problems. When the ions come in contact with viruses, bacteria, or mold, they remove the hydrogen atom from the pathogens. Without hydrogen, the pathogens have no source of energy and will die. A simple demonstration shows how iWave prevents mold from growing on bread over time. This shows how the products address pathogens downstream of the device, at the coil, and in the living space. Another demonstration shows how iWave products remove smoke from the airstream within a short period of time.
I'll do that same kind of way
New Calgon offers a complete line of iWave air purification products. For commercial buildings, hospitals, schools, restaurants, and offices, the iWave C is a self-cleaning, no-maintenance air purifier with universal voltage, programmable cleaning, and an integral alarm circuit. The iWave C is suitable for 12-ton systems, and multiple units can be applied to larger systems. It has a waterproof housing and can be installed indoors or outdoors. Unlike ionization created by PCO technologies currently on the market, iWave products effectively purify the air in buildings without producing any harmful byproducts or needing ongoing expensive replacement parts. Remember, only iWave air cleaners safely treat the air so patients, students, and residents can live and breathe better. iWave, only from New Calgon.
Okay.
How do you do it without making ozone?
So these devices, the output on these, each one of these, is right at 12 volts. In order to create ozone, you have to have over 12.07 volts output. So we stay right under that threshold.
So what are we making?
We are emitting high concentrations of positively and negatively charged ions into the air, into the supply space. The goal is to create a saturation point of these ions, and I'll explain what these ions do. But I'll put it into perspective so you know. What we're going to talk about is, so what we're shooting to do is we're attacking dust particulate to reduce and remove dust particulate from the air. Pathogens and bacteria, kill them, and eliminate problem odors caused by VOCs by breaking up VOCs, volatile organic compounds. So I always start my talk with the different technologies that are out there, both passive and active technologies. The air filter itself is a passive technology, but it's necessary, obviously, in any system. And as I start talking more about the I-Wave, you'll kind of be able to tie together how they complement each other. A good air filter and I-Wave really complement each other from a dust particulate removal standpoint.
What would this MERV be? About 10?
It depends on the filter. We recommend with I-Wave to have at least a MERV 8 filter in place. You can go higher, but a MERV 8 filter and an I-Wave device basically gives you the performance of a MERV 13 from a dust collection standpoint. And price and performance from an airflow standpoint, you're better off than having a MERV 13 anyway. Yeah, you won't have the pressure drop. So, how clean is our air? Everyone's probably seen sunbeams in the morning coming through the window, and you can see the dust particulate in the sunbeams. That's the visible dust particulate. There's also dust particulate that we cannot see, but we're breathing this dust particulate all the time, in and out. Fine particulate matter, small as 2.5 micron in size, so that the human hair has a micron diameter of about 50 to 70 microns, depending on the actual hair follicle. But dust, dander, pollen, that kind of falls into the 10 micron size. We're not going to see that with the naked eye. Fine particulate can be 2.5 microns and smaller. That can include combustion particles, metals, organic compounds, a variety of different things. And if we get that kind of stuff trapped in our lungs, it may not leave, may not exit. It can create other problems. So the reason I bring this slide up, this is a slide that anybody could Google and find on the internet, but it puts into perspective size from a micron standpoint of dust particles and what they might consist of. I'm going to fast forward through a couple of slides here and get back into we're known for chemicals. I think everybody in the room knows New Calgon as coil cleaners and aerosols and a variety of different chemical products. We're the New Bright people, Arcs, Love and Flush, variety of different products like that. But we're also heavy into indoor air quality management, both on the chemical treatment side with biocide products, with cleaners, disinfectants, but also on the air side with this kind of stuff. So another passive technology, and we've heard a lot about this in the marketplace, especially through the media, with this COVID thing, is they think that air purification is UV lights. Well, it's one aspect, but it's another passive technology. A UVC light bulb on a coil is only treating a spot. It's not treating anything downflow of the coil. It's treating that spot where it is. So it's relying on the air that passes through to treat that air as it comes through. And often the UVC light bulb is positioned either above or below a coil to bathe that coil surface and keep organisms from growing on with UV rays. But that's all it does. Now you can use one of these in conjunction with our technology that we're talking about, where say you got a commercial rooftops unit that often there's units that have a design where the filter is sandwiched right up against the coil. There's no way of getting one of these devices in between the filter and the coil. So you would have to mount the I-Wave technology downflow of the coil, which is fine. But if you want to treat your coil as well, you would still maybe consider putting a UVC light bulb system on that coil itself to treat that spot on it, to basically keep the coil from having organisms grow on it. But the UVC light bulb itself is just treating a spot. The other thing about UV rays is they're not really all that kind to plastics. There are UV resistant plastics out there, but there's a lot of plastic that will just crumble in time from exposure to UV rays. So I just bring that up as another passive technology. Now active technologies, we consider the I-Wave active technology, and I'll expand on that. But probably our biggest competition out there is another active technology we call photocatalytic oxidation. So I'll throw out a few name brands: APCO Fresh Air, Air Scrubber, RGF Remy Halo. Those are all PCO technologies. And basically what they are doing is they are taking a UVV light bulb and encapsulating it in a metal coated housing. So this is an example, a picture of a Remy Halo. You can see the bulb inside. It looks kind of like something that would go on a spaceship. But the outer housing of this is a metal coated catalyst. That metal coating is titanium dioxide. And the idea with this technology is you shine that UVV light bulb on that metal coated catalyst, you're going to create some chemical reactions that create an off-gassing effect. And the off-gassing effect, the PCO manufacturers that sell these devices really focus on hydrogen peroxide as one of the off-gases that would be actively pushed into that supply space as a result of that reaction of that bulb shining on that catalyst. Also there's ozone produced in this process. With all of these manufacturers of PCO devices, they all produce ozone. Now, I'll use APCO as an example. APCO actually sells, they claim that they have ozone reduction on it as well because they have a activated carbon cartridge on their unit that's designed to adsorb that ozone. At some point, that cartridge needs to be changed too because they become spent. At some point, they don't have any ability to adsorb gases. So that's where someone like that might get away with saying, well, we've got lower ozone output than, say, this brand or an air scrubber. But they all put out ozone. So they also, from an ASHRAE standpoint on PCO, I'm going to go up a slide and I'm going to go back a slide again. But from an ASHRAE standpoint, disadvantages of PCO technology is there's also the potential for an incomplete oxidation process that might yield other off gases. A good example would be formaldehyde. So formaldehyde could be created with this as well and also pushed into that supply space, which means that you might be breathing or could breathe, inhale formaldehyde as a result of that if there's an incomplete oxidizing process. The big downside with the technology is a UVV lamp that typically has a lifespan, at least with the products that are popular out there, of 18 to 24 months. So they need to be changed. And when they've surpassed their lifespan, they might still light up and look like they're working, but they're not working. So it's really tough to convince a customer that they need to spend $300 to change a bulb to make this thing keep working when they still see it lit. So, and there's an ongoing cost from that standpoint with this technology. It does work, it does kill stuff. What it produces does kill stuff. So, I'm going to go back to this slide just to kind of point out some things. There's another downside to this is the only mounting position that you can put this in is downflow of the coil. So it's going to be mounted in the supply, downflow of the coil. So you cannot treat the coil with this. Now, APCO does sell a device that has an extra plug-in for another accessory UVC light bulb that will plug into their device that can also be mounted, say, right above or below the coil. So you get two bulbs to replace if you want to treat the coil. But if there's a downside to this, you can't mount it in the blower compartment before the coil. And that's a big difference with our technology that I'll point out as I start showing some pictures after we talk about how bipolar ionization works. So ions are naturally present in the atmosphere, and they're at their highest counts basically where there's no population or pollution, and in a lot of cases they're at the highest counts where you've got water hitting itself or hitting shores. So around waterfalls, beach fronts, high elevation ranges, you might be able to measure up to 5,000 or more ions per cubic centimeter of air. It's the cleanest air to breathe. Forest areas in the 4,000 range per cubic centimeter of air. But we get into more populated areas, so you get on down Cleveland, as an example. If you take an ion counter that counts both positively and negatively charged ions, you might measure 200 ions per cubic centimeter of air. People in pollution use them up, so their counts are lower. In a building that's not treated, you're probably gonna have less than 100 ions per cubic centimeter of air. So this just gives you a little bit of a reference point and how we measure ions, but ultimately we want to try to get probably, in most cases, somewhere between 800 and 1,000 ions per cubic centimeter of air to realize the benefits of bipolar ionization from an air purification standpoint. So what we're hoping to do with our devices is to create and maintain a saturation point of ions in that supply space, in that living space, the inhabited space.
Andy, how do they actually measure it? You have an ion counter. What does that do? I mean,
An ion counter is going to give you a reading of the ion count per cubic centimeter of air.
Okay.
And there's a variety of different brands of them that are available online. They're very expensive. There are a couple of different types, and there's different ranges that they can measure in. You want to have one that measures at least, I'd say up to 20,000 ion cubic centimeter of air, at least. And you want one to be bipolar, meaning that it will measure both positively and negatively charged ions. I was looking at one last week from a company that we compete with, actually, that sells ionizers called Plasma Air. They sell an ionizer, and they sell two types. They sell one that's bipolar and one that just measures negatively charged ions. I see no use in why anybody would want one that just measures negatively charged ions, but maybe they have an ionic breeze or something from the 90s that they want to measure the ion output off of it. So, one other thing here. So, what our devices are designed to do is artificially create the same kind of ions that you would have naturally occurring in the atmosphere at a high rate, so we can saturate those spaces with the airflow from the HVAC system, a ducted system. So another word or a phrase for this process is called cold plasma. So if you have a device, an ion generator, another name for the phrase for the output is cold plasma. So back to these three things. We want to be able to catch particulate, kill bacteria and airborne pathogens, and eliminate odors, basically break down VOCs with this technology. So again, how it works. We position this device in the supply airflow so that as the air that passes through picks up these ions that are produced by the device. I've got this one plugged in. I haven't turned on quite yet, but this one has two emitters on it. One's going to be a positively charged emitter. One's going to be a negatively charged emitter. These emit high concentrations of ions. So as your airflow flows over this device evenly, both emitters at the same time, it's picking up these ions that this is producing and forcing them into that supply space. And the ions are, there's equal amounts of both positively and negatively charged ions. When these are injected into that airstream, they break down past pollutants in the airstream into harmless elements like oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, water vapor. And they're going to do several different things So I mentioned those three things: dust particulate, kill bacteria and airborne pathogens, viral organisms, and break down VOCs.
Is that electrically operated only when the fan isn't running?
You need to have airflow flowing over it. So it depends on how you have it powered. If you can line wire it and have it run independently of the system, but it's only gonna really be active when there's airflow passing over it, pushing the air into the supply space. So optimally, you wanna have a constant airflow.
Okay.
On a newer variable speed system, it happens that's how they're designed. They are constant airflow. They have ECM motors in them, they're constant. If you have a system that has a PSC motor in it, I would recommend, if you really want to experience the benefit of it, have it run all the time. That's gonna cost more. I put an ECM motor in my unit at home back in 2013, so we could run the fan and put a better filter in place constant. And about 3.5 years ago, when we got these iWave Rs, I put one of those in, and I actually plugged it into the EAC terminal, so it would run when the fan's on. I had that open terminal, and that's 110. That device is universal voltage. It'll sense from 24 volt up to 240 volt and operate the same in that range. Just the way the electronics are set up.
Residential ones too?
Yeah, the iWave R does. It's universal. So back to the picture of the sunbeams and seeing dust particulate in the sunbeams. How we basically reduce the amount of dust particulate in the air is these ions that are injected into that airstream cling on to dust particles, as well as organisms, but they cling on to dust particles. And when they do that, a charged ion clinging to a dust particle becomes attracted to another dust particle that has a charged ion clinging to it. They become attracted to each other magnetically and they clump up. As they clump up and build bigger clumps, they gain weight. And as they gain weight, they either fall out of the air with gravity, or they get heavy enough to be picked up in the return airflow and sucked in to your return, which means they're going to end up in the filter. So I mentioned earlier that when you've got an iWave in place with, say, MERV 8 filter, the reason you're going to get the performance of a MERV 13 filter is the teeny tiny dust particles that might pass through a MERV 8 filter, but not a MERV 13. Those teeny tiny dust particles are actually clumping up with other particles and making bigger particles, bigger clumps. So they're going to get caught and captured by that MERV 8 filter. Whereas the MERV 13 might catch them without the iWave, possibly, but you've got static pressure reduction with a MERV 13 versus a MERV 8, and a much higher cost. And right now, MERV 13s are tough to come by. Very expensive too. This is just an example of a 1-inch filter, maybe a week, 2 weeks after the install of an iWave R, a residential application. Yeah. That's what I was running a 1-inch filter when I first installed this, and I switched it about a year later to an April Air 410, which is a 4-inch MERV 11. But in 4 days, my filter kind of looked like that.
Wow.
So that tells you how much more dust particulate you're going to pick up. You're also going to notice more dust on surfaces initially running this, and it's something that you want to alert the customer that hey, you're going to notice dust to your surfaces initially. This is dropping it all out of the air. If it's not in the air, we can't breathe it. We're not breathing nearly as much of it. So a good dust and sweep, moving forward, along with good filter changes, you're probably not going to have nearly the amount of dust.
I'm not telling my wife, I just wanna see her clean more.
What's wrong? You have clean or what?
So this is just an example, the same system that ran with 3 different filter types for a month each, with each filter type. The left one, obviously, your throwaway, spit through fiberglass cheap filter. As you can see, they don't catch much. The one in the middle is just a standard pleated, and then the one on the right is a MERV 8. Which one? I mean, they all ran for the same amount of time. Which one caught more? And the other thing is, so in order to make this more of a realistic test, this was done in the summer months. So what he did was he ran the unit with that one and then opened the house up for a week to get all the dust back in, and then ran it with that one for a month, and then did it again, and then ran it with that one for a month. Just to create a little more of a real life situation, because technically if you go from this to this to this in 3 straight months and you don't have any additional dust particulate, that's not really an accurate test. So they did open it back up to get some more of the dust particulate from the outdoors in to create that.
You say you prefer to mount that in a supply duct?
Yes.
Huh.
Well,
You wanna disperse the ions
you want
throughout
to
the room to strip
you want to
out-
create a saturation point of ions. Because I've had a lot of guys, especially mechanical contractors, call me in the last month and a half or so. Our instruction says to mount it in the return, but the return we mean in that, and we changed the wording of that in our bulletin. It needs to be on the clean side of the air filter. Now, if you have it on the other side of the air filter and you do normal filter changes, you're probably okay. But if the filters don't get changed very frequently and it's on the dirty side of the filter, that filter is just going to act as a catch-all for all the ions, and they won't make their way into the supply.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, if you've installed any of them and they're on the dirty side, if you do change filters frequently, say if it's a good service account and you're out there pretty frequent changing good filters, you might be okay. But I would advise relocating it to the other side of it.
The clean side of the filter.
So it also you wanna make sure, well, it's also helpful if you have a good air distribution, a
Yes.
properly designed duct system, and you'll have ions coming back in the return to kill
Yeah.
everything that's in the return.
True.
You said it goes after water droplet. What does that do to you?
No, it creates water droplets.
Oh,
You'll see that as I move along.
okay.
Actual water droplets or
Yeah.
molecules
That create a water vapor.
humidity.
It's not gonna really affect your humidity. It's
Right.
so little that it's not really, but it's a byproduct
But you're not
of,
gonna actually see
yeah,
physical droplets?
no. It's minuscule,
Minuscule amount of humidity,
right? Not even gonna be
non-measurable humidity.
non-measurable.
Gotcha.
So it's not gonna affect humidity, and it doesn't affect the performance of a humidifier in the system. And humidity doesn't affect how this works. So, but good point, because the next couple of slides, as we talk about how it kills bacteria, viral organisms, mold, you'll see why I mentioned that. So this slide is about oxidizing substances produced by our iWave bipolar ionizer. So when it's positioned in the airflow, producing high amounts of positively and negatively charged ions into that airflow, they form to react, or they form what we call hydroxyl radicals, or OH radicals, an oxygen and a hydrogen atom. And that hydroxyl radical adheres to the airborne virus, the body of the airborne virus, and they kind of grab onto them and surround the organism. And as they're surrounding the organism, those OH radicals basically break down the protein, which is the protective layer, in the protective layer of the shell of the organism, and they free up a hydrogen molecule, which is pictured right here. A free hydrogen from the layer of the organism, as it's breaking down the outer layer. That free hydrogen and that OH radical come into contact, and they form H2O, a water vapor. That's your byproduct. And then, ideally, you've broken down the whole outer layer of the organism, nothing to protect the RNA on the inside. It's gonna fall out and die. It can't reproduce. So, whether it be a viral organism, a bacteria, a mold, it's gonna kill all of them. Because they are all constructed, kind of like that.
Is there any connection between the oxidation voltage potential and the 12 volts that you said?
Yes.
There's no.
More so on the
nothing to do with
VOC
each
part.
other?
More so on the VOC part. So where we talk about volts here on standard oxidation potential,
Yeah.
this just points out the hydroxyl radical that we form with the ions is at 2.81 volts. I mentioned PCO technology that emits ozone and hydrogen peroxide. See the ratings for those, 2.07 and 1.78. We already have a stronger, more aggressive starting point than our competing technologies. And we're recreating something that happens naturally and that don't affect us. There's no ill effects from an ion exposure standpoint to us or animals, but organisms, yes.
Andy, an online question is, how big are the ions?
I can't tell you, they're teeny tiny,
Well, they're electrons and protons, right?
basically, yeah.
Teeny tiny.
You can look it up.
Teeny tiny.
They have weight.
I'm sure they have a size, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I'm a sales guy.
It's
Not a
not a
chemist.
molecule, it's smaller, than the atom.
Yeah, what's the atom made of?
No
Neutrons,
one knows.
protons, and electrons.
No one
Yeah,
knows.
that's it.
They all,
Space goo.
they all have their own weight.
They're ions.
Can't weigh them, too small.
Ions are electrically charged, period.
Also,
Now, ions are gonna last about a minute to a minute and a half. Now, when a positive and a negative hit each other, they cancel each other out. They're both gone. When an ion clings onto something, it's probably gonna last a little longer. But if it, say you got these in the airflow, and what's the typical CFMs of a system? 1,200 maybe? 1,000 to 1,200?
400 per ton.
The FPM or the CFM?
CFM.
400 per ton.
400 per ton. So if the system's designed right, and this is positioned in the supply, ideally, it's gonna branch out into those supply spaces and last maybe a minute. Now, hopefully it clings on to something, but back to production, this device, the iWave R, it's good for up to 6 tons, 4,800 CFMs. This puts out 320 million ions. 160 million positive, 160 million negative per second, per cubic centimeter of air per second. So we're throwing so many ions, so much mud up against the wall with what this is producing. So much of it's gonna cancel out, so much of it's gonna fizzle out. But there's such a high concentration of these, and if it's in constant airflow, where it's effective, we have a saturation point, it's doing what it's designed to do. The ions are doing what they're designed to do. So we create so many, and that's probably there's other ionizers in the marketplace. Ours are very consistent, we probably put out the highest concentration of anybody that produces ionizers for air purification, because of the design, the technology. But the goal is to create such a high amount of ions in that space. We cannot oversize these devices. So this one, the iWave C, our commercial unit, a lot of these go on residential 3-ton systems too. Just because maybe they're removing a competing product that's positioned with a 4-inch hole above the plane, maybe pulling a Remy Halo out, and they want something that looks like that, kinda, from a display standpoint. This mounts right in that hole. That's fine, you cannot overproduce.
Finally, something where more is better.
More's not worse. So you can't really oversize it. You can undersize it though. So this is just some third-party testing results that we've had through the years on common pathogens that we all probably recognize for the most part: E. coli, MRSA, tuberculosis, and it just shows the exposure time in these tests to bipolar ionization and the kill rates. So E. coli is the fastest. In 15 minutes, we're almost 100% kill rate. But the slowest, when there's tuberculosis, takes 60 minutes to get a 69% kill rate. It'll kill it. It just takes longer because the shell on tuberculosis, the protective layer, is like a rhinoceros shell. It's super hard to crack.
Does
But
this have
it just
anything
takes
to do
longer.
with COVID?
Yeah.
Yes.
Anybody tested?
We've already noticed that's missing on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the first thing our customers are gonna ask.
Well, in this book that I gave everybody, in the middle section, there's if you look at this page,
Coronavirus.
right next to the comparing chart with other technologies, there's this page that lists, there's 2 boxes here, and it's 2 separate tests. They're concurrent tests though. So the first one is with SARS-CoV-2, which is what creates COVID-19. This device, what we call our iWave C, GPS calls it the DM48AC, same thing. GPS sells this in the aviation industry to be mounted in airplanes.
That's how they're getting their air.
So,
20 air changes an hour.
so yeah, they're getting really fast, big time air changes in the airplane fuselage. So what they were the aviation industry, because planes were not having the same kind of business through since COVID came along, it was hurting business. They were able to. Oops, sorry, I didn't have my screensaver.
Why couldn't they have gotten
Adjusted.
the cruise ships on board with that?
Well, I'm not saying they're not on board. That's a different industry from us.
Yeah.
The reason that we have this in here, they were the first to actually get a sample of COVID-19 to have tested in the aviation side. So they had a third-party testing and a simulated fuselage set up, and in 30 minutes, the kill rate is 99.4%. Now I have a concurrent one underneath here with the iWave R with human coronavirus 229E, which is a substrate of SARS-CoV-2, which creates COVID-19. Basically the common cold, very, very similar. And it shows the kill rate with the iWave R on that. I don't have an actual test yet of iWave R on COVID-19 because COVID-19 is still very tough to get tested, even to get a sample of it.
And that's in 60 minutes.
Yeah.
So you figure in 120 minutes, you're gonna be down to 1%. Then another 100.
Well, it just depends on the air changes, amount of air changes. But we're talking with this puts out 320 million ions per cubic centimeter of air per second. This puts out 400 million. So not that much difference, even though that's up to 12 tons, that's up to 6 tons. Very close from an output standpoint.
Do they have a CFM or velocity limitation?
It will vary depending on the application and the building and the equipment in the building.
What are the electrodes like? I mean, they're flexible, right?
Yeah, they're carbon fiber.
Carbon fiber.
Yeah, they're carbon fiber, so they're designed to last. These devices are designed to last 10, 12 years at least, maybe 15 years. Depends on the environment, depends on how well the filtration works. Two of them self-clean, the iWave C and the iWave R, they self-clean. But a lot of that is just situational. All of them have 3-year warranty. The warranty is really there for the contractor. We know we're in the internet age. We don't sell this stuff online, but I can't stop anybody in the room from buying 5 of them and putting them on eBay or Amazon. So if we get a homeowner that calls us that says, hey, I bought one of these online, trying to install it, and it must have burned up or damaged my board or whatever, first thing that we ask is, do you have written proof that it was purchased from and installed by a licensed contractor? And if that answer is no, sorry about your luck.
I was gonna ask, is there a way of like telling when they stop working, like if they're not actually ionizing?
Most
Yeah.
of the HVAC equipment has some thumbprint in there somewhere that it's
So, okay, I turn this on. See the light?
Yep.
And you guys know what that is? A non-contact volt tester?
Yeah.
This is a field piece. I like the field piece one because it's really sensitive.
Oh, awesome.
Electrostatic.
It's a cheap ion detector.
That one you might have to literally touch the
Yeah,
emitter.
this
And you
one's down to 24 volts. That's right.
see what it does. I've got one from UEI that you almost have to touch it. This is Klein, so.
Well, that one makes 2 different noises.
So you can tell positive and negative.
Yeah.
Hey.
But that's one way of testing it. The other thing is you just hold your hand over it. You can feel the cold plasma coming off those emitters. It feels cold.
Oh.
There's no airflow over it. It just feels cold.
Don't touch them.
Oh, yeah, I got it plugged in. I'm touching it. It's plugged into the wall. Now, you and I both touch it at the same time, one of us is gonna get bit.
What?
Yep. But yeah, that's the simple way of testing it. I'll do a little more with that from a troubleshooting standpoint in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
The last part of this, now I showed you how it killed organisms. So how does it eliminate odors? So odors are caused by volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. Everything we buy and use today has VOCs. So probably the most common things though, new carpet, new car smell,
Air fresheners,
scented candles, essential oils, emit tons of VOCs.
Plywood,
Yeah. Expanding foam. Just examples. But, so, chemical compounds that cold plasma can easily control are VOCs that have a volt rating under 12.07. So our devices are at 12 volts output. Remember that? So we stay under the 12.07, which would create ozone if we go above that. We could make these devices create ozone. We don't want to do that. We want to stay below that.
okay.
But there's pages and pages of VOCs listed that you can look up. They all have an electron volt rating to them. If that electron volt rating to that VOC is under 12, that'll break it up into its simple elements. So ammonia is an example, which is makes your urine smells. Nitrogen and 3 hydrogens. This, because it's at a 10.07, this is at 12, by fluorinization will separate that nitrogen from the 3 hydrogens. No longer ammonia. It's a nitrogen and 3 hydrogens.
So the smell goes away.
And then their smell goes away. We had new carpet installed in our house in early April. On the first floor and the second floor, bedrooms and a couple of staircases. And my wife swore that she couldn't smell the new carpet smell within a day. She's got more sensitive nose than me. She knows it's because that. She knows whenever we're cooking in the kitchen, something that leaves a lingering odor. I love the smell of bacon, but this is gonna eliminate about 20 minutes.
You have an override kill switch on it?
What bugs her though is she likes scented candles, so if she burns a scented candle, she can hardly smell it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I'm not telling my wife that either, she loves those things.
That's, but anything that leaves a long-lasting odor in the kitchen, you burn something cooking, or cooking fish, or bacon, or garlicky stuff, anything that leaves a long, noticeable lasting odor, this is probably gonna pick it up.
Natural gas doesn't have an odor, so the gas companies put mercaptan, that's the skunk smell, or
Yeah.
whatever.
That, I mean, we may be able to break that down, I would just have to see the volt rating on it. If it's under 12, we could probably break it up. Now,
There
skunk
was-
smell, we can, I know that for a fact. Marijuana, we had some nice success, especially,
Oh,
I know
that's a
of
whole market, those guys will spend.
college dorms. Kids experiment, and they like to smoke stuff with experimental stuff. And we've had some great testimonials come out of those type of situations because it breaks it down. I had a situation in Cincinnati, an older lady that lived in a condo complex where condos were right up against each other, and one of her neighbors was a younger person that smoked a lot of marijuana, and she could smell it, and it drove her crazy. And the contractor that was dealing with us for the wholesaler wanted to know if this would work, and I said it should work. We've had a good experience with college dorm situations, and so they ended up oversizing. They put in a residential system, they put the IWC in place, and told her to just keep the blower fan going. And she said within hours she couldn't smell it, and have not had a problem since. So it's because it breaks it up. But these are just examples of, with the electron volt rating, if it's under 12, we can probably break it up. If it's
Is this PowerPoint available online?
It is not, but I can get you copies of the slides if you want
Good.
a copy of it. And he's recording. We're recording it, I guess, so
Yeah.
that's something you guys can refer to.
Yeah.
Only thing I would ask is don't post it on YouTube, unless you're gonna post it as
No,
private.
this will stay on Facebook, on our page.
So GPS, our manufacturer of the products, we get this slide from them. They have this technology in a hospital. And this is a situation where, this is a outdoor generator, a diesel generator, and it's positioned so that nobody can see it. So it's right by the fresh air intake vents. So the exhaust that's produced by this when it's running goes right back into the hospital. Brilliant design. So the red is before the bipolarization went in. And you can see the pink run points when it runs. The blue-green line below is after the bipolarization ionization was installed. And you see what it's done to those points when it runs. It's breaking down that exhaust,
So
those
that's
fumes.
a diesel emergency generator because it's a hospital.
That's where it fit, obviously.
So, and GPS, like I mentioned, so we sell these products as your wholesaler off the shelf, do anything configuration product. You can do anything with 3 of these products I'm gonna show you. But there's bigger systems that they'll custom build, IBAR systems, and put them in an air handler. So these are installed in a lot of hospitals. And for this reason, but they can with ASHRAE 62.1 has to do with fresh air intake, fresh air reduction. And you can reduce that number for fresh air reduction down 5 CFM per building occupant with having bipolarization in place.
I was gonna save a lot of money.
You could change, I mean, if you're sizing a new system, that you would completely change how you size it. Now, I don't have a way of figuring that. They have ways of engineering a complete write-up for that. So there's the other difference between us. Say if you want an economical way to basically size a system with this technology, you could take our products and put multiples in place. You'll see some pictures of multiples. Or you can, if you need a more engineered system, the commercial build spec rep for
A lot of them
GPS
are
would
already
be that.
engineered that
Yeah.
way. As soon as it gets super cold outside, the economizer gets
Yeah.
shut, or as soon as it gets to 95 outside, they get shut anyway. This will just help you keep your economizer working longer.
So from an installation-based standpoint, it's in over 1,000 K-12 schools. Lots of healthcare applications, including hospitals, outpatient centers, offices. Well over 1 million applications worldwide now. This was about 200,000 at the beginning of this year. COVID has totally changed this. And we've had, I mean, I hate this year for every reason except for one thing, the iWave sales. I hate it for everything else. I almost would trade it for a normal year, honestly. But I can't, so. Some notable installations. It's in the White House. When they redid all their systems, ductwork in the White House in 2017, they installed this. I'm gonna get into models. So the first one I'll just barely touch on. I don't promote this one. The size of a hockey puck times like 1.5 times the thickness of a hockey puck. We thought the iWave B. It's a little less expensive than the iWave R, and the reason I don't promote this is it is good for up to 6 tons. It's only 24 volt pickup, so you're gonna have to have a transformer if you don't have 24 volts. And these 2 emitters are fixed and they don't self-clean. So if these get dirty, they're not emitting at 100% capacity. What's the point? So I just don't really promote it much. Now, if you can get to it and clean it frequently, if you want to say $50, have at it. But this one,
How do they self-clean?
well, that one doesn't.
It's just got a bumper arm, then.
So this one and the iWave C have what looks like this helicopter head on it. Every 3 days, I'm going to my button. So there's a button right next to the light.
This,
Every 3 days it does this.
in the dark, you can't see.
Can't see it.
It's because the light's all behind you.
I got a flashlight.
That's bad.
Okay, so every 3
There we
days Every 3 days, it goes through a cleaning phase like this. That's the way it's preset.
Basically, it's just knocking the chunks off the bristles.
It's just knocking any dust that could be sitting on the tops of
The
those
dust is gonna
emitters.
try to cling to that, right? 'Cause
Knocks it off.
that's where the source.
Now you can change that sequence from 3 days down to 1 day, or up to 10 days with this one or that one. The iWave C does it every 5 days, automatically.
You change that one?
I wouldn't change it, I would just leave it set at 3 days. But again,
I say the 5-day one, can you change it?
yeah, you can change it down to 1 or up to 10,
Okay.
but as you can see, it's self-cleaning.
Do you have to adjust those posts when you get them so it'll?
I've only had a couple of probably less than a dozen cases where they were set too high and it wouldn't go all the way through them. And you basically just take your fingers and push down on the carbon
Like the hands are
fibers.
clocked.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't just bump them side to side, you?
No, if they're not, we don't have that issue today. But early on when these were coming out, we had a few that here and there that they didn't push the post down all the way. So let me turn this off and I'll show you how to. I'm gonna grab a screwdriver. So, see these emitters have a Phillips head screw?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take one out.
Is that a replaceable part, or?
Yes. Now, you shouldn't have to replace it, but I've had to replace a few where guys fumbled them and dropped them.
Drop them.
Yeah. The wiper bar is also replaceable.
It's strange, what does it do?
So,
Oops, I've never seen one of these. Guys weren't here.
that's your emitter, it's just a plug. It's got this sleeve that's over it, like so. And just a Phillips head screw. They're easily replaced.
Contact down inside, or?
Just plug it in. So it's right back in.
You didn't know it's positive from negative, right?
That doesn't matter, because the electronics are doing that.
Oh.
So the emitters are the same.
Huh.
It's just that which side is positive, which side is negative. It doesn't matter. The emitters are the exact same.
And it's
part.
only 12 volts, right?
Yeah.
But you're gonna feel it if you touch it, and I touch your arm or something?
Yeah, one of us get bit.
That doesn't make any sense. 12 volts?
No. I don't know.
It's just the electronics.
Yeah, it's like
it
it's
self.
twist a 24 volt wire and have it break through your skin and get inside there, you feel that.
Oh, wet tongue, yeah.
I mean, touching this.
How would you determine if they are dirty and need to be replaced then?
But they don't really need to be replaced unless they're broken. If they look, so if they're in an environment where you get more than just dust, so you get a home where they smoke inside still and they get nicotine tar buildup on them, take a cotton swab and rubbing alcohol and clean them off. If it's a manufacturing environment where they get maybe some oil or manufacturing fluids or something on them, take some rubbing alcohol or acetone to wipe them off.
A glue-based product.
A glue-based product, we got some good filtration in place. That may require some change out, but I've only changed like 3 sets of these and thousands of sales. And it's mainly because guys drop them. They fumble them and drop them, and they break an emitter or break a wiper bar. Just contact us if that happens, and we'll send you a set and a little bit no cost.
How do we know when it's not working? Basically, just check it with the non-contact.
Well, make sure that it's powered on first.
Lights on?
So this device, again, it's 24 volt to 240 volt. So the wiring, I've got this on still, I'll turn it off.
It's the R.
This is the R. R is in residential, but a lot of commercial applications, this is suitable. I mean, if you got a
What kind of
5-ton,
power consumption? Do you just wire it in parallel with the blower motor?
sure, it draws 10 watts,
Oh,
nothing. The iWave C draws 12 watts. The flexible one for ductless mini splits and T-Tacs, 5 watts. So wiring wise, you've got this toggle switch power wire. You got the light and neutral, green and ground. I spent more time putting the post connectors on this, the tab connectors, than I did actually mounting it. Magnetic base. Anything magnetic in here that's steel,
Panel here.
that panel?
Table thing.
You put it inside your duck and your duck.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that.
So you can mount that anywhere in the.
Yeah, if you got a vertical flow, you're mounting it like that, because your airflow flows over like that. If it's vertical and you want it upflow mounted like that, that's fine. If it's a downflow, as long as it goes over those two emitters evenly,
Other
like
than
that.
the, other than the power supply, you can mount that pretty much anywhere in the supply duct.
Yeah, you just want your airflow. Now, the advantage you mentioned earlier, lots of these, or lots of the Cs on a larger system is advantageous because it's all cleaning feature, no maintenance, and versus one great big device in the air handler, like a custom I-bar, that we don't do. So you got multiples of the iWave C, you can, versus, so the travel time for those ions is shortened greatly if you have this mounted closer to the register, the supply registers, the diffusers.
It's just to run the power supply.
One of these, like in a VAB box, which might have 2 or 3 legs coming out of it, that's a lot shorter starting point to get to the supply and maintain a heavy supply saturation versus the air handler right after the filter, or right before the coil.
What did you say that ion life was? A minute to a minute?
Minute and a half.
Now, if I put that in the supply duct, that's gonna take up some of the square inches of stuff.
Now, if you mount it from the outside with this gasket, 3-inch hole, the only thing it's sticking in is just these.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But then you need the 4-inch, was it 4? Is it
This one's a 3-inch hole,
3-inch?
that one's a 4-inch hole.
Oh, now you gotta use the whole stuff.
Yep, you would have to use a hole saw, unless you're really good with the parsnips and can cut a perfect circle.
You got that one with the drill where you drill a hole in the middle and it goes around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The advantage to putting it in the blower compartment, especially if we're talking residential, is, so this is an upflow application. Your filter's over here, so your airflow's coming in this way. Positioning that, putting it on the base of the blower compartment, that's exactly where I have mine, on an upflow furnace. The first thing that gets treated before the supply space is the coil. It's gonna keep things from growing on the coil. It's gonna keep your air handler pretty clean, from an organism growth standpoint.
And the fan too.
And the fan. So
As
that's
long as it's
ideal.
okay.
Now, I could mount it down flow of the coil, we're just not treating those. And on a residential, you wanna treat the coil first.
So you don't
If you
have
can
to
fit it
have,
in there.
That's the spot that always fills up with water though.
Well, I mean, back to, you could actually, if you don't want it to get wet, if you have an overflow,
Right.
which is gonna be, how often?
Something else is wrong.
Something else is wrong, but also, if, what are most overflows caused by? Clogged drain, condensate drain, what's clogging the condensate drain?
mold.
Organisms. What if this kills those organisms? You think you have a clogged drain?
And you can just sell another one too.
Duh.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
still hung up on it kills organisms, but you can put your hand on
Yeah,
Okay,
it.
so
For how long?
the airflow can go across those two.
you want it to come in and cover, and cross over those evenly. So if you have the air, this is, I mean, regardless of whether it's a vertical, going like this, if it's horizontal flow, you want evenly. One positively, say positively charged emitter, negatively charged emitter. If you have the airflow go one over the other, what's gonna happen?
It's just gonna be.
They're just gonna cancel each other out. You're not gonna get the ions going
Not
up
in
in the supply.
series, had to be in parallel.
Even right over the two.
Yeah.
Like a football over goalpost.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and all these devices have an airflow direction sticker
Oh.
Oh, okay.
with arrows that says airflow direction.
Yeah.
So just align it to the
Yeah,
airflow
but see,
direction.
sometimes it gets a little turbulent down there in those blowers.
But I do know guys that will either mount it, like most of them mount like this on a residential upflow.
Yeah.
But if they're worried about it getting water on it, if there is an overflow, they can always mount it on the inside of the door, like this.
That'll-
Again, your airflow is still flowing over those 2 emitters even.
That'll definitely get some of those things broken.
Most often it's like this. We're talking 2 minutes to install an upflow.
Yeah.
Don't let the customer know that. But that's about how long it takes. So here's a vertical flow. This is a downflow. And that's right by the air intake, so it's literally pulling the ions off of these emitters into the air intake. And then here's an external. So, like I said, you got a gasket, 3-inch hole, mounting ears, you can mount it externally. Now there's 2 other wires here. Look,
That's so you can daisy chain them?
no. Residential guys, everybody that's residential has so many ultra anal customers that have to see that their device is on and working.
Oh, for an indicator LED?
So, if this is in the blower compartment, they're not gonna see this. They're not gonna see that light. These 2 wires, these 2 maroon colored wires are there. They're a 24 volt LED dry contact, mimic this light. Put a 24 volt LED for that ultra anal customer. I would never even bring it up unless they bring it up. Light bulb on these 2, stick it outside the cabin.
Is that like an extra $200?
But most guys just cut them off or roll them up and don't bother them.
Oh, okay.
But that's what they're there for. And on the iWave C, it's the purple wires, same thing. In commercial applications, you have remote devices that you get to plug those into to see that it's powered on or not. All it's basically saying is it's got power, it doesn't have power. That's the iWave R. And again, we sell tons of them for residential applications. And the reason you would want this over the first one I showed you is they self-clean. For the cost difference, why wouldn't you want something that's producing 100% capacity all the time that doesn't require any maintenance? Of course. Okay, the C, all the same things as the features of the iWave R, except for it's a flush mount. See the back of it? Looks just like the iWave R, it's the same kind of emitters.
Sticks a little further than that.
Yeah, it goes in a little bit further. This has a variety of different types of mountings. Again, this is every 5 days it self-cleans, but that can be changed. You have a 6-foot width, 18 gauge wire. If you're gonna feed extra wire to run this down a supply duct, maybe closer to a diffuser. This is 6 foot.
Does that have to be shielded cable if you run?
No,
No, okay.
I mean, it's up to
It's
you.
just power supply.
Just a power supply. I mean, we're talking low voltage anyway for the most part.
For the nosy customer, what good is what you see?
So this is a weatherproof housing. Now, I do suggest if you're mounting these outside on a rooftop,
Put a hood on it.
no, this is weatherproof housing, you can remove it to adjust it. But I would take a small 1/8 inch drill bit,
Condensation.
put a little pilot hole in the bottom of it.
Yeah.
So if it does get condensate in it, it drains.
No lights or anything?
It does have there's a LED display in it.
With some numbers that they won't be able to understand.
So that is, to be clear, that can be mounted external to the equipment on the roof.
Yes. But like I said, I suggest if you're gonna mount it where it's gonna get the elements,
Yeah.
I would put a tiny pilot hole in
It's
the
gonna
bottom of it.
be -20 on the outside, even though it's plastic, it's still
Yeah.
condensing inside.
Yeah, and we've seen pictures guys have that issue, so I just suggest when you're installing one of those, just, or put the whole thing inside. You're gonna see some pictures on that too. So here's your here's a vertical application where it would be mounted.
What about, so you've got a draw-through evap coil, so you're on the downstream side of the blower compartment, you're running close to 100% humidity, right? In the air conditioning mode, that doesn't hurt it as far as operating range?
No.
It's designed for that?
And it'll handle up to 160 degrees.
It's more the humidity,
Yeah.
like on drives and things where they throw them in the blower
Matter.
compartment.
Won't matter. Now, if you're gonna use multiples, you wanna have at least 2 feet apart spacing. Align them right, because this one, like the other, you got your arrow for your airflow direction, so on this one, you would want your airflow like
Is that just
or
to
like
give
this.
it time to get the ions out so they don't?
Yeah,
cling to each
it
other,
keeps
or
them separate. separated.
Wouldn't you stagger them across there?
You could, but at least 2 feet spacing. And it could be more. I mean, if you're running this is just on a supply, that's a marijuana grow house in Michigan. The reason they have those on there, they tried UV lights first, and they still had mold growing on their leaves of their marijuana plants. Not a moneymaker. So they put this in, and they eliminated that problem moving forward.
I'm surprised they didn't put them like this instead of all.
They could.
It's in a
That's just,
marijuana
that's just
grow.
how that's just how they put them, but they're 2 feet apart, so they're good.
They work
Now-
there, they're not allowed to use.
This contractor actually built a unistrut bracket with 3.5 inch collars.
That's about huffing it all over it.
You created a hanger, get your air intake down here, and these are all angled, because it's literally pulling the ions off of each one into the air intake. So that, the 2 feet spacing doesn't really matter all that much on that one, they gotta be angled right, because they're getting pulled down.
Well, if I got a supply fan between pre-filters and final filters, where would I mount that?
Downflow of the filters
Which one, the pre's or the finals?
after the finals, I would.
And if those are up against the coil, then.
Again, the whole idea is, we gotta have a, the whole idea is to create a saturation point in your supply space.
Yeah.
So the clean side, the furthest away, if
So
possible.
I'm thinking 10 per unit.
More is better.
There's just another angle of that application. They actually took a piece of foam tape and wrapped around each one before they attached it to the collar, the unistrut collar.
Yeah, she'll break these.
And, I mean, it's as simple as that for building. And I have contractors that build their own, L brackets, which is just a CNC piece with sheet metal with a 4-inch hole in it. If they don't wanna have to flush mount, they wanna mount them inside. But, there's a lot of creative ways of building brackets. Myron's seen these, you've seen these. So this is also unistrut, this is in a blower compartment, and they've got them lined across the top and down the sides.
That's what we needed,
It's got like 6 of them in there.
I don't know how many are in there because this is only a partial picture. This isn't my territory, I got this from one of our other guys, but I liked it, so I included it in my presentation. I think the more ideas we can give you from an option standpoint with them, for mounting,
Big gas blower there.
yeah. That's not uncommon though.
That's a little more compared to my units.
I've been in bigger ones.
So the last one that I'll talk about is the iWave M, and this is for ductless mini splits and PTAX. This is our mini strip. This is an 18-inch strip, and it has 8 emitters on it. It'll handle up to 1,600 CFM or 4 tons, and up to 36-inch
What is
coil.
it, stick on or
Yeah, it's got a Velcro
Where
back
did it go?
Velcro and a Velcro strip
Velcro
on the
back.
back of the blower?
and a Velcro on the power pack. So this one's 2 wires. This is 110 to 240. And so if you're installing this on say a ductless wall cassette, you're gonna mount it right across the back plate, just under the filter screen. So the cover's off of this, obviously, you're gonna put it right across the back. Filter screen will be right here, so your air's coming in like this, evenly over the strip, picking up the ions. Power-wise, isolate your communications port, which on this one's number 3, or plugged into the first 2.
So this would be like a hospital, I mean, not hospital, apartment.
hotels, yeah.
Yeah, PTAX, ductless mini splits.
No. Yeah. Let's do it.
Now, this one doesn't self-clean.
Hey, you don't want your
Here,
computer.
I'll let you guys look
That's not
at
in the
it.
supply does it for that.
So your filter, when this is covered, when the cover's on this is a ductless wall cassette, your filter screen's on the top of it. So as the air comes in through the filter screen, it's picking up the ions that this is
I've
producing.
never seen them like that, it always goes into the evaporator and out the top.
Oh, in the front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just depends on, it depends on the make. They're not all the exact same design, but they're somewhat similar.
What are the emitters like on there? Are they like?
Same thing, carbon fiber. I'll let you guys look at it, pass it around.
Take it home.
I'll show you another picture. So that's a wall cassette.
Oh, I see, they're like little paintbrushes.
A ductless ceiling cassette. So your filter screen is, this is your intake here. So So they got it mounted across, around the lip,
Oh,
just beyond the filter screen,
Oh,
on a ductless walk, or ductless ceiling set.
okay.
How many CFM did you say that was good for?
1600,
1,600? 4 ton?
4 ton. And you can use, if you've got a bigger system, you can use multiples. So if you've got a, say a 48, 50-inch coil, maybe a refrigerated walk-in or something, and you want to treat that, keep the mold from growing in there. If you've got produce or something and you want to keep the mold from growing, it's gonna definitely drop down the amount of mold buildup. And it'll probably keep the
What's the name
stuff.
of the picture? Is that a picture of a?
That's a ductless ceiling cassette. So they took the
Oh,
cover
yeah.
off of it, which is the air intake is in the middle,
That's never
and they just have it on the rim. So the air's coming up that way into it, it's picking up those ions as it's coming up
So
in.
the adhesive wears out on that Velcro, is that orange?
Shouldn't. We're not talking about heavy airflow anyway. And there's no ozone, no UV rays, there's nothing really to break it down.
Not everybody uses the actual 3M.
Are you supposed to clean that blower wheel before you put the sticky on?
Probably not a bad idea. And enhances,
No one will.
the adhesion. So the technology is good for all seasons. Obviously, we're getting into the winter months, which is kind of your cold flu season. We've got the COVID issue, obviously. I don't know if that'll, at some point it's probably gonna wane, but the opportunity is still there. But all seasons, I mean, your pollen allergy, that's more particulate. Pollen's particulate. So we breathe that in and we have an allergic reaction by having it in our sinuses, and that's where you have issues. So this drops that out of the air, makes it plump up and gets it out of the air.
Have they used these in like cigar rooms?
Oh yeah, great for cigar rooms.
How would you, the best way to clean those on the mini splits?
Cleaning the mini split or cleaning the, okay, so
Dans.
with this, obviously it doesn't self-clean like the other devices. Just some compressed air, like canned air, or CO2 if you've got that handy.
Huffer bait.
Or a soft bristle brush like a clean paintbrush. Wipe them off.
How much does, as the dirt builds up on this, how much does that degrade the output?
It will definitely shorten, it'll lessen the
How
output.
much it's putting out?
Yeah. The nice thing about this one though is you got 8 emitters.
Right.
So
They make up.
whenever the filter screen is cleaned, they should, whoever's doing that should have a look at these. And if they look like they get any dirt buildup on them, just blow them off.
So
or
they're
brush
not
them
gonna
off.
go like on a 2-year service plan
No, hopefully you're doing it every 6 months,
every.
at least every year.
Quarter.
Yeah.
Used to be quarterly, now it's going.
Ductless get disgusting. Now, we actually sell a kit for cleaning ductless, for chemically cleaning the ductless, get the coil clean, the blower wheel, all the insides. And the nice thing about this is, with the Velcro, you just peel it loose and hang it next
So
to
they
it on
can
the
handle a
wall.
little bit of water spray.
A little
and stuff
bit.
like that.
But when you're gonna clean, you're gonna de-energize the unit anyway,
Right, right.
so that's not gonna be an issue. But the nice thing about this is because it's got a Velcro bag, just peel it off and let it hang in the unit while you're cleaning.
Okay.
From a marketing standpoint, we've got the iowayofAir.com website. It's geared to more the homeowner, but it does explain the technology. I just showed you at the beginning commercial video that we have. It's a YouTube link. You can feel free to share that with a customer. The homeowner video is a 2-minute video geared to the homeowner, and it's on the website. They can click on it and watch it. The iowayofAir.com website has testimonials. It explains the technology, has the video, explains the warranty. We have a contractor locator, that's the where to buy part. It's just a zip code locator for contractors that want to be on it. If you want to be on it, contact me, and I have a form that I have to have you fill out and send back to me in order to give us permission to put you on. But most of the ones you would see on it, if you typed in your zip code here, it's probably mostly residential contractors. I got a couple that do commercial and residential, but let us know if it's something you want to be on. From a marketing standpoint, this catalog really gave you the contractor for you guys to have as a reference tool to learn about it. But we also have, and our residentials probably use more of these trifolds. The selling tools for this technology, and this is easy to sell right now because of the COVID stuff, everybody's oversensitized to it. The box sells it. Walk into the homeowner's dwelling and to do a service call, set this on the table or the counter if they're home and let them look at it. It explains what it does, but so does this. Just makes it simple.
So how much are those R's?
He can't,
I can't really tell you, cause, the wholesaler sets the price
can
on
you
it.
give us the
I can
SRP?
give you kind of a ballpark. Probably under 400 for the R.
What about the C?
The C is probably gonna be
Around 600 or.
around 600, 6 to 700, depending how it's set by the wholesaler.
And you say it's how much more powerful, you say?
So this one, the C puts out 400 million ions per cubic centimeter per second. The R puts out 320 million. So this one, the C is up for up to 12 tons. And if you're gonna use multiples of these, just basically take the tonnage or the CFMs and divide it up
It
accordingly.
isn't much more, you know, it's not a whole lot more output.
No, but it will handle more from a tonnage standpoint. It is more powerful. And then the M's are the least expensive of them.
Can't kill bacteria too much.
No, you can't.
It's deader.
That is the,
It's all the better.
So does everybody feel a little bit more comfortable now that I talked about it as to what it does and kind of how it works?
Now, when we sell us one of these, because this won't clean the surface stuff on the coil, kill the surface stuff on the
Yeah, well.
coil. It's already there.
If it's alive, it'll kill it.
So if I have a coil that has growth on it, I
Yeah.
put that in.
I have a guy
I know
that,
it'll kill it.
I have a guy who works for one of my wholesalers, Scott Collier, he's at Habigger in, Akron. He worked for refrigeration sales in Akron for years. He installed an R in his girlfriend's unit, and she has a supply into the basement. He said there was mold that you could visibly see growing up the wall from the base in the basement. He said within a couple of days, it had all turned white and kind of crusty.
I've heard that story.
So I've got a contractor in Columbus, Atlas Butler. They probably install 150 of those R's a month. And what sold them on it, I didn't have to sell them on it. They sold themselves on it. They sent out a duct cleaning crew after they installed one, like 2 weeks later, to do duct cleaning. And the crew came back and said, something's really weird. All that's, the insides of those ducts, where they would usually be kind of a grayish, greenish color, was all white. And flake, and falling off. It killed all that bacteria that was built up on the
They just
inside
had
of
to
the
clean
ducts.
it all out.
They just had to
Eventually
sweep it
that'll-
out, basically.
Eventually that'll clean itself
Yeah.
out.
Because they can't, I mean, when they're alive, they can cling to the surface. When they're not alive, they can't cling to the surface of themselves.
so the brushes didn't do it.
No, they saw it visually before they even went to clean.
Oh, okay.
And they had installed an iWave R in that system 2 weeks prior.
Uh-huh.
So they told me that was their selling point on it. They tell their customers, it'll kill, if there's anything in the ductwork or on the coil, it'll kill it.
Now, you have it in the supply duct and it's gonna kill the bacteria that's on the coil.
Not if it's in the supply duct. If it's positioned before the coil, it's gonna treat the coil.
Oh.
If it's not positioned before the coil, not so much.
So ideally, after the filter.
But, I mean, on a residential size application or a unit that you can position it in between the clean side of the filter and the coil, it's advantageous to have it there, at least one of them there if you use multiple units. But the key is we want to saturate that supply space as much as possible with as high a concentration of ions as possible all the time for the best performance.
So if I have to mount one in the blower compartment after the coil, will it kill the growth on the coil eventually?
No.
No.
So in that
No,
case,
you-
you'd wanna clean the coil first and.
Clean the coil, or if you want a treatment on the coil, you can't fit one of these before the coil, maybe you've got a filter sandwiched up against the coil, there's where a UVC light bulb
It's
system
also-
would come into play
It's
to
not,
bathe that coil.
it's not gonna kill what's in the coil, but if you think of your whole system as a closed loop, you're not gonna have as much live biologic
Right.
particulate coming back
Coming
to
back.
your coil,
Once you've cleaned it,
so it
and you
should
put
cut
that
down
in.
on
During
error.
the off.
Yeah, you're much better off.
When it
And we
cools
sell a
down,
coil cleaner for a no rinse evaporator coil cleaner, EvapFresh, that really took off this year. It's probably, we've had it for 10 years. It's a cleaner and disinfectant. And we also say you can use it as a hard surface sanitizer, CPA registered for that. It will kill COVID-19, we've got proof of that. But you can use that as your coil cleaner and clean and kill on the coil. And if you guys are doing a normal maintenance for your customer, where you would clean that every 6 months or every year, you're fine, you're gonna be fine.
Well, think about this, if you go into the winter and coil dries up and all that mold and stuff dies, come next season, it shouldn't load up with anything. There's nothing to stick to it. There's no,
It's definitely gonna lessen it.
yeah. You won't grow any new mold on it.
So no bulbs, no ozone output, so there's no smells.
It's amazing.
It's really, and this is not new technology. Bipolar ionization has been around and been used and employed for years. It's just the technology's gotten better with it. The ways of, I mean, these kind of devices, this device has been around for 3.5 years now. Before, their technology, the emitter technology was not the same. The insulators on the emitters, they didn't have as good a lifespan. They do now. That's why we say 10, 15 years. That should be your lifespan with it.
what about this stuff that, I've got questions on photohydroionizing. CRF has them.
RGF.
RGF.
That's PCO, photocatalytic
Yeah.
oxidation.
You-
And
you
they will
plug
claim-
it into an outlet.
Yeah, they will claim that they will also create some ionization, but it's apples and oranges. So we are putting out hundreds of millions of ions per cubic centimeter of air per second. They might be putting out 8.
Yeah, they're not,
50.
they don't do a very big
Yeah.
group.
There's a UV bulb out there with some kind of sock, like a UVC with some kind of catalytic sock or something that goes over the bulb and supposed to release something.
Bulbs are gonna only last so long. They're very expensive to replace.
They're down 50% in a year.
And most of them, unless they are putting out something that's an active treatment, they're just treating a spot. So the PCO is creating a chemical reaction and off-gassing. That's your active aspect. So the off-gases get picked up by the supply or pushed in the supply space. Not everybody can handle what that thing puts out. If you've got somebody that's got breathing issues, asthma, bad allergies, COPD related issues like an emphysema or maybe a child with cystic fibrosis, that's really bad. Makes it really tough to breathe. This is great for those types of applications. Now, I'm not saying that PCO is, I mean, it does work, it kills stuff, but there's really big time downsides to it.
Which Johnstone Supply has those installed?
The one on Hinkley.
Oh, okay, good.
And so Columbus does as well. I don't know if they've put it in Akron and Menor, but I know that they've been trying to focus on it.
Charlie says it works, it works.
Yeah, it works. And
He's the man.
Charlie's one that's a skeptic type. All those guys can be skeptical. Most of our distributors sell the highways. Williams has got them. You guys have probably sold quite a few this year. So we have basically 3 products. I have 4 available, but 3 that I really promote. The 3 products, you can do just about any, there's so much versatility, you can do just about anything with them. Any kind of system, any size system. You just gotta have airflow.
I got airflow.
Make that happen.
And it gives you another option to offer a customer for a solution. Especially right now. So, I mean, you guys are mostly mechanical contractor, you're in the commercial side. So, how many of you guys are familiar with the CARES Act funding?
Huh?
CARES Act?
So CARES Act funding is A lot of that money that people apply for to be used for HVAC upgrades, PPE, maybe better drinking fountains, variety of different things, sanitizers, this falls right into that. I'll use Claremont County down by Cincinnati. Their municipality, they were awarded, after application, $1.2 million in CARES Act funds that they could use. They put about 300,000 of it into highway and all their facilities, all their equipment. I just had a college job, I think it was the University of Akron, I believe, went through RSC. They had, they bought 727 of these for the P-TAX indoors. And I'm sure it's CARES Act funded. I had a job in Hocking County, down by Logan, Hocking College. They probably bought about $400,000 worth of highway to be installed in combination dorms, buildings, big buildings, smaller buildings, you name it. So, and we could, I mean, GPS, our supplier, we actually compete with them a little bit too with their commercial build spec stuff. They're in a lot of applications too. So the thing that separates us is ours is available right off the shelf at your wholesaler, ready to be purchased and installed however you see fit. Gives you a lot of flexibility.
We don't need a special engineer to design it for us.
As simple as take the tonnage or the CFMs, say if it's commercial system, it's 100 tons, well, divided that by 12. And upsize a little bit. If it's just under, go an extra unit. Or by CFM, divide by 4,800. And there's a lot of them that are a combination of both of these in the same system.
Can we sell the governor on it, keeping the bars open past 10? They work
Well,
in Kentucky.
he did about 2 weeks ago approve like $15 billion of CARES Act money towards assisted livings and nursing homes. Lots of P-TAX in nursing homes and individual rooms, but a combination of unitary and P-TAX because their common areas are conditioned by unitary. They might have fresh air intake, which is going to be created by a unitary system, and then common air. So the key is
No special considerations if you got something with a lot of outside air?
not really. I mean, I would oversize it. I would probably oversize it,
Just saying CFM.
but that changes depending on season too. So combines can get closed and not even used in the
I've
winter.
got some buildings that are all 100% makeup areas.
You're not gonna get it quite the same performance with that because it's breaking so much up, but it'll work to an extent. My goal for these kind of things where I get to do a training is to alert you as to the technology, number one, and then an understanding of the technology, how it works. And then the tools, the devices, and how they would come into play from an installation standpoint, so that you have some comfort level with it. That, and we're always available with answer questions, even down the road.
So if I put this in a unit that actually feeds a block of OR rooms, is that gonna affect the patient being
Shouldn't.
open?
No. It's in a lot of hospitals, so. And the power usage is much less. The fact that you don't have the replacement parts like bulbs to deal with, and the odors because of off-gas substances. It just gives a great option, alternative option.
12 watts, that's nothing.
Right.
Yeah,
What's your return rate, failure rate?
almost nothing. Yeah, in fact, most of the stuff that we've had come back is, anytime when we get a warranty, if I get a warranty request from a wholesaler, it's more often than not their customer didn't want to pay for it, and that contractor did not find another home for it to resell it. So they take it right back to the wholesaler, and the wholesaler is typically a no questions asked, so they put it on us. But most of the ones that we get back, we test them, nothing wrong with them.
As long as they're wired correctly, not dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably the bulk of, and that's not really a defect.
Or riding in the back of the truck.
But the amount that we have is very little compared to how many we are selling. And our wholesaler is our immediate customer, and ultimately it's the end user. We wanna make sure that they're happy and pleased with the product, so it's just it's part for the course of doing business. But it's almost, I probably have done in 4 years, 30 RGAs, and I've sold about, $13 million worth of this in Ohio. 8.5 million this year. It's our savior this year because our chemical stuff was flattened down. Spring didn't happen. Couldn't get in anywhere. Everybody was closed. They weren't allowing PMs to get done. Then we got a hot summer, it caught up a little bit, but hot summer means it's not a PM. If you're cleaning a coil in the hot summer, it's because it's caked. You gotta fix it. So we didn't sell nearly as much coil cleaner as one would. If we would have had a more normal spring, it would have been a lot better. Now this year, hopefully this next year should be better we don't have that kind of an issue. If we can get the summer heat again. But yeah, highway's been a real saving grace. I'll be the first to say.
It's gonna be
Wonderful.
45 on Christmas Day, yeah, we should have a warm summer.
What did it change? It was supposed to be snow on Christmas Day.
I'll show you my demo since I got my demo out. So you guys saw the smoke demo with the cigar on the video at the beginning. I kind of mimic that with dry wave. Make sure this is off. So I use a vape tool. This has just got glycerin and vegetable oil. So it's no nicotine to it, just for smoke. I'll fill this box full of smoke and I'll light it up.
You heard Jerry Reed?
So the unit's off, it's not on yet. I'll let it sit there a second, I'm gonna light it up a little bit. If I can get the lights turned. Maybe not. Battery might be dead. But you can still see the smoke in it, I'm sure. Let that sit for a second, it's not on yet. And now, I will flip it on.
There's no airflow.
No airflow. Looks like there's air in there. There's not. It's the ions. It's doing the pumping thing, but it's there, inside there. You guys can see that, right?
Yeah, but yeah, it's clearing out.
But there's no flow through the box?
No, there's no air in there.
There's no airflow.
But it looks like there's air circulation in there. That's the ions coming right off the emitters.
Well, look at that. I mean, what the hell?
Eat it up.
I'm hungry.
Presentation without the demonstration is only conversation. You got hired to say
Can we
that.
quote you on that?
No, it's not my quote, but it's true. And if you can demonstrate it like that,
Presentation without demonstration is just.
conversation. I thought he was full of shit, but
That was
it
amazing.
sounded funny. So,
It's like magic.
yeah. But see how quickly that cleared out, and if I didn't turn it on, it would still be full of smoke.
Then we could have done it if we had airflow.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the fallout on the ions? In other words, if you put it above you with no airflow,
I mean, it'll do a little bit, but the airflow is necessary to really move it.
Your hair gonna fall out?
I'm already doomed. So.
I'm thinking of a little room someplace, you know, and
It's a solar panel.
We are working on a portable unit.
It's a solar panel.
I just answered a request for some feedback as to whether we thought it would make sense to have a more robust portable unit that could treat much bigger spaces. It'd be more expensive, or a smaller, much smaller one that treats smaller spaces. And I said, I want a robust one.
That's already different.
As long as it's portable and you can move it around, people that like this technology will want a portable unit. I mean,
Sure,
right
you can
now,
take- You can take it to work, put it on your desk, just a box fan in the unit.
hotels have ozonators to go take into a room that stinks. Somebody's smoked in it. They take an ozonator in there, and then they leave it on for so long, they can't have anybody in the room. This, if it was portable,
Will it kill
you
bed
could
bugs?
actually be in the same room.
Will that kill, will that kill bed bugs?
Right. And you could have people present.
Too hard to show.
So,
Will that kill bed bugs?
no, if I didn't kill organisms like that, that's a bug. It's literally a bug.
Yeah, I don't want to do work for a hotel. anyway.
That's an insect. But
I was there one time.
it'll kill organisms. All three types. So, and you can say it will kill COVID-19. This technology will kill COVID-19. So that's hopefully gives you some ammunition moving forward that you can use along the way.
Especially if it's.
Right now, this is so easy to sell right now. I mean, residential, it's super easy to sell it, if the contractor brings it up. But the everyone's so,
You just break it up
Hyper-sensitive.
into 24 easy payments, right?
well, yeah, they could. There's a variety of ways of presenting it.
We have a client that has 8 or 10 buildings, and they're doing COVID testing in some of these buildings. And they just got funded for this. We have to put them in a couple of weeks. Myron sent them a video on this, 3 weeks or so ago?
Yeah.
And, he started telling them, they got our client. And we've got some going in pretty much all their buildings now. So,
Well, we're not on the video
How big
anymore.
are the
We
units?
anything from mini splits to.
come off or turn it off.
Yeah, I think so. Tom, you wanna set them back up on the?
Sure. Projector go on?
Yeah, it went off, but I was gonna show you a couple of slides from a commercial standpoint, if it'll go on real quick.
I was thinking of this thing.
That's better.
Bring it back up.
So this first one, once it comes up, the franchise holder for most all the Ohio Applebee's restaurants. And he's got some restaurants in neighboring states.
Didn't I tell you?
Yeah.
They have this on all 49 of their restaurants now. And once this comes back up, they made their own placard so that when you walk into the front door of their restaurant of any Applebee's in Ohio, you should see this.
There you go.
So they came up with this, but it basically explains that they've got a state-of-the-art air purification system called the iWave installed in their restaurant to improve the safety and the health of their customers.
Cool.
Still gotta wear a mask.
In Cincinnati, the biggest name pizza chain in Cincinnati, La Rosa's, they have over 30 restaurants, pizza shops. They're putting in all of theirs. Has anybody heard of Cameron Mitchell Restaurants?
No.
And they're all over the country. Rusty Bucket, Cameron Mitchell's, they got steakhouses, they've got fish markets, variety of different restaurants, a bunch of different names, but they put this out on their website. They wrote this, so we didn't write it, but they are employing our iWave products in all of their restaurants, and they are getting the word out to their customers. So, you guys, anybody in the room ever heard of Leslie Wexner, Limited Brands? Last week, I got an order from one of my wholesalers wanting to know how quickly we could ship 9 iWave Cs to Colorado to be installed before the end of this week. So that's not my territory, but come to find out, Les Wexner saw this from Cameron Mitchell posted. He said, I want it in my home in New Albany, Ohio, and several of his offices, and then he said, I'm having a Christmas party at our ski chalet in Colorado, and I want it installed in that place before we have our Christmas party. So this is what drove that, the Cameron Mitchell Breathe Easy thing that they posted.
Now.
And he knows Cameron Mitchell, so when he saw that, and he read it, and he said, I gotta have it in my places.
Immediately.
So there's gonna be a trickle-down effect, that you guys might start seeing some trickle-down because of this kind of stuff.
How available is the supply right now?
The supply of the, from us to our wholesaler, because the demand's like crazy right now, and nobody could forecast the demand that we have. We are really good on these right now. So our wholesaler that needs so many of these, I just got an order for a couple hundred of them for a job. We had it in stock, we'd sent it, they had it within a week. The wholesale, now I have wholesalers that have stocked up heavily on highway VARs, so they're just depends on the wholesaler and how much they have in stock. Well, a month and a half ago, Wolf Brothers would have had probably close to 400 highway VARs in stock. They ran out 3 weeks ago. So they got caught with their pants down a little bit. They didn't know how to plan that. I don't know if I could have planned that. But they thought they were okay. They got wiped out 3 weeks ago after having 400 units in stock of the highway VAR.
How's your stock, Henry?
Pretty good right now.
How many of you guys have?
Right now we have about 15, but we have new open branch.
Okay.
So as soon as we get more.
And you guys can pull
clientele-
from another branch if they see it,
Oh, yeah.
if they'll let you have it.
Yeah, 2 days.
Well, the residential one, the guy, right?
Tell him to hold on to
About
those.
13.
The iWave R,
Brandon, I put in 4 of those.
the iWave R, this is our most popular unit because of the residential. There's just thousands and thousands of residential applications.
The install time goes way down, you ain't gotta drill in an hour.
Right.
3 minutes, probably less than 5 minutes. Right now, our lead time for the wholesaler is about 4 weeks for this, but I have wholesalers that have them in stock and have planned ahead. I've got a wholesaler that ordered 1,000 and 10 of their 30 branches 3 times this fall. So it's a matter of just whoever you do business with and seeing what they have and what they can get. But if they don't have it in stock, you're waiting about 4 weeks for these. The iWave M is about 4 to 6 weeks from us to the wholesaler right now. Used to be way longer. But when you get jobs for 1,000 of them at a time, 500 of them at a time that you didn't have forecasted, that changes everything.
Where are these made?
Right now, these devices are made in China, unless your electronics are China. That's changing though. They're gonna go online with a plant in Mexico very shortly, if they haven't already. That'll up our availability too. So, the company that owns them is sensitive to the bad business environment in China, especially in the last year with what's happened.
It'll be $150 at Harbor Freight in 2 years, right?
Doubtful on that one. But you can't change Rome in a day. They're making some sensible moves that most people would appreciate. So you're going to be hard pressed to find any electronics that aren't. I mean, everyone's got one of these. They're all China. So hopefully that was helpful.
Absolutely.
We thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Appreciate it.
And thanks for the hat.
You're welcome. Just see if it fits.
Yeah, let's see.
I'll just be Miss Marino.
So as soon as I take it home, one of my kids will probably grab it and say, I'll never see it again. I'll say, that looks cool, I'm gonna wear that. No, they have no idea what that means or what.
So much your hair up.
Yeah, my hair.
Oh, kids.
Sad. Every time he said it'd take 2 to 5 minutes to install it, look at Kevin.
I'm sure I can make it.
I don't know if I would trust you to
Thank you though.
hang it on magnets though.
Yeah.
I know.
But yeah, we appreciate you traveling on a snowy night.
Well, I'm not traveling, I'm only at 10 minutes up the road, so. I'll be in the area to begin tomorrow.
Okay.
Supposed to go with my son to Painesville
Shorts.
tomorrow afternoon to look at Lake Erie College
Yep.
for the frost. And, I think they're supposed to get pounded today.
Yeah.
They always get pounded.
It's lake effect.
The section of highway you wanna be on.
I mean, clear up to Buffalo, they're supposed to get pounded.
Yeah, that whole stretch from
So,
Dead Man's Curve all the way to Buffalo.
I kinda hinted to him, you might wanna tell your coach that you might wanna reschedule that.
Because if you're looking for.
He's an 18-year-old, so he's driving a two-wheel drive Silverado. And I'm not really all that comfortable with him running him by himself coming up to meet me there if the weather's bad. So, I don't know.
Supposed to get that much, aren't we?
Oh, it's a wrap, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.